Welcome to Let's Chat Finance Season 2 by Home Buyer Centre. Here are some snippets from the episode. There's a general rhetoric online and in the world that building to invest is a bad idea. What do you guys think about that?
I'd like to challenge that quite strongly, actually, Tash.
You can get it wrong if you choose the wrong place to build, but being really thoughtful and planning ahead to where you're going to put an investment property for a build, it makes a lot of sense.
But there is still lenders out there with appetite to lend up to the 95%. That means you still only have to contribute your 5% to actually get into an investor space.
Welcome back to Let's Chat Finance by Home Buyer Centre. I'm Tash and I'm here with Tyler from Home Buyer Centre Victoria, Chris from Resolve Finance and Scott from Home Buyer Centre WA. To start us off, let's talk about something a little bit controversial. I own 2 investment properties personally, and they've both been established properties already. There's a general rhetoric online and in the world that building to invest is a bad idea. What do you guys think about that?
I'll start. I'd like to challenge that quite strongly, actually, Tash. So I'll use my own personal story. I've been lucky enough to be able to invest in multiple builds. And having the right strategy and getting the right advice and seeking out the right areas and the right development and building homes in those areas does give you a substantial opportunity to potentially build some equity in growth corridors, more so than established, in my opinion, which has enabled me to use that as a launch pad into other investments.
Have you built in Victoria and WA or just Victoria?
Just Victoria for me. So, I just chose to stick to the market that I live in and that I know. And it just gave me some more insight into choosing the right pockets that I thought would potentially have some growth. But both states are great options for a variety of reasons.
I find it really interesting because you are from Home Buyer Centre Victoria and you have only bought in Melbourne or Victoria. And then Scott, you're from WA and you've only built in WA.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm quite objective about established versus building, but I've stuck to what I've known and I've been building for. I built my first home buyer's property 25 years ago. So I agree with what Tyler's saying around if you're looking for growth and those growth corridors, building, for me, it's absolutely made sense, but I am objective. I'd be interested to know what your thoughts are on why established.
I guess there's like a lot of, to me, it seems like, because I haven't been through the process personally, it seems like there's a bit of risk in terms of the amount of time it can take to build. But I've heard that Home Buyer Centre has a lower average build time than some of the other builders. There's the horror stories of things ballooning out to 3 years or whatever that is. Also, the fact that you're building in a new area where there's lots of houses being built, so maybe there's an oversupply there. But I understand in WA it's different at the moment because land is quite scarce.
Yeah, it's quite unique at the moment over there. There's a scarcity of land and that's obviously driving, the demand. That's not incorrect that can happen, but I guess it goes back to what Tyler said around doing your due diligence in where you build. So it's not just all building. You can get it wrong if you choose the wrong place to build, but being really thoughtful and planning ahead to where you're going to put an investment property for a build, it makes a lot of sense.
And I'd just like to add to that, it's really important to research your builder, but also the developer and the estate that you're looking to purchase in as well and their track record. Some of those stories around, several year long delays come from delays in the land actually being ready to be built on as well as the build taking a while. So making sure that you're working with a reputable builder and also a reputable land developer with a proven track record is really important.
Definitely. Chris, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I agree with both sort of views, to be honest. I think from a finance point of view, I think the risk is a little bit managed anyway to a degree because the banks will do a valuation on that construction property. A valuation from a lender point of view can be quite conservative by nature. So I think the risk is minimised from that to a degree.
Yeah, one of the things I was a bit cautious of was having to, obviously you have to pay for the land up front and you pay for the build in, what is it called? Progress payments. Yes. So you're paying for it out of your income while you're not earning rent for that first year or 2 or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah, definitely. But that still is assessed throughout the process. So the whole scenario for that client is assessed on the doability. So if that particular pathway is the right pathway for you from a finance point of view, it shouldn't actually have a barrier to get in.
Is your borrowing capacity less to build than it is to buy established?
It should be the same. Because in reality, it's not then about the type of property, it's about then the actual individual customer scenario.
Okay, so there are good ways to build to invest.
100%.
Tyler, are there any other benefits to building to invest?
Yeah, so investors that build should have the peace of mind that the home is actually under warranty. So the ongoing costs compared to established should be a lot lower. And if something goes wrong, the builder will come back and fix it.
What is the warranty like?
So with Home Buyers Centre, there's a 12-month service and maintenance warranty and then a 25-year structural warranty.
Wow, that's really good. Chris, are there any other benefits?
There is a couple of other potential benefits, but they would need to get advice around this, is that there is potential for taxation incentives in this space as well. So definitely suggest they speak to an accountant. And the other one is potentially around stamp duty concessions, but they need to speak to an appropriate legal advisor or a conveyancer on it.
Yes, and go speak to your mortgage broker as always.
Exactly.
I've been debating buying or building another property, and at the moment I'm trying to toss up between WA and Victoria because I'm from WA, but I live in Victoria at the moment. How do we decide which one is better? What do we even start looking at?
Fight it out.
So it really comes down to what your individual strategy is what I want to start off. So it is situationally dependent. However, speaking from a Victorian perspective at the moment, I think what's looking most promising for Victoria is if you have a look where our median house price is relative to the other capital cities versus where they've historically been, there seems to be some room for Melbourne to have some growth over the next few years, hopefully. If you compare Melbourne with Sydney, I believe the gap in median house price is up over $500,000 now, where traditionally it has not been like that. So there is some growth potential in Melbourne, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, Scott?
So from affordability, we also, WA sit underneath the national median, but I think what we're seeing in the demand at the moment in WA, it stems from we've got interstate migration, we've got overseas migration, immigration, we've got a really strong jobs pipeline with the WA mining sector. Days on market for established is as low as it's ever been, and I think a lot of people are now coming back to building just because of the fact that they're struggling to pick up something in established. So that's now meaning that we have a further demand in the build, and then we've also got a huge amount of infrastructure going into those growth corridors with the metro net. So it's all just really stacking up for a smart investment decision in WA.
And I'm a little bit biased because there's no toll roads.
Yeah,
that's a win.
It's a big win. You know, that to the list.
Let's dig a little bit into affordability and yields though. How does WA and Victoria stack up side by side from a finance perspective?
I think both markets have their challenges, but they also have their opportunity. Even if you look at the yields, I think the yield
4.2.
is 4.2 or 4.5.
4.3.
In WA?
In WA, and I think Victoria's average at the moment is around the 3.5 or from that 3.5 perspective.
Can you explain what that actually means if we're just throwing numbers out? 3.5, did you say?
Yeah.
What?
So that's the rental yield, so the income that you're actually going to get off that.
Per year.
Yeah, for the per year off the rent. So I think these different market conditions. You know, WA has naturally been booming for a couple of years. Victoria's had some few challenges still, a little bit of that lag from post-COVID. But again, as we've spoken about previously in other episodes, it's about not trying to time the market, but time in the market. I would strongly suggest that you engage an appropriate specialist, a broker, an accountant to work through your strategy to actually determine what's appropriate for you and your needs.
Yeah, and don't try and always look where the grass might be greener. Like as you guys have both shown, it often pays off to invest where you know.
And it's about probably even spreading some of that risk too as well. So, you know, if you've got all your eggs in one basket, you know, that's probably an opportunity to even look outside, so into both states, just for both opportunities.
Yeah, definitely. If someone does live in WA and they might want to invest in Victoria or vice versa, there might be some concerns around how you even manage that from interstate. I know flats can be very expensive between the two states. So how does someone who's looking to build to invest in a different state manage that?
We do it really well. We do it month on with investors that inquire online through technology. So we simplify that house, land and finance through technology right from the initial inquiry through the build, and we use like a construction portal throughout the build to show photos and regular communications for the customer experience all through that build to make, you know, the investor feel comfortable that where their build's at and really confident in the outcome.
That's fun. You can get all your updates online and you don't have to drive past and check it every day anymore. Amazing. Chris, what's changed with the investor landscape recently?
I think the biggest change that's happened has been with the RBA decisions and the cash rates coming down. That's actually then associated with a decrease in the lender rates, which means that there's more borrowing capacity for clients to actually look at broader opportunities.
Yeah, and changes to schemes and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, the schemes don't really factor into the investment space because that is purely, that home builder.
I find it's been scaring investors and they're getting FOMO online and they're looking at the first home buyer schemes being like, wow, we have to get in before this certain date, before all these first home buyers are going to come and buy all the properties.
Yeah, very true. I think it's still back to your individual strategy and your individual circumstance. Particularly in the investor side, you need to have a really good broker in your pocket with working with you on this, but also you have to have a really good accountant to make sure that strategy is right for you.
I'll just add the FOMO around the schemes in conjunction with rates coming down has definitely given investors that we're talking to a lot more confidence to move forward. So yeah, we're definitely seeing that happen at the front end.
And the other thing, from a schemes point of view, yes, it doesn't actually work in the investor space, but there is still lenders out there with appetite to lend up to the 95%. That means you still only have to contribute 5% to actually get into an investor space.
Tyler, is Victoria too expensive to invest in?
I don't think so. The relativity of the median house price relative to the other capital cities is sitting in a really good position for potential growth. The other thing to consider is there's different pockets within the Melbourne market. So just because one pocket might be quite expensive doesn't mean that they all are. And there's various growth corridors that have future infrastructure upcoming that are, in my opinion, a great spot to do some research around investing and look for some future capital growth opportunity.
Is WA too risky to invest in because it's too reliant on mining income?
I don't think so. It's not just related to mining. It's that interstate migration. It's the demand from overseas skilled workers coming into WA. That's not going to change. We can't. Everything that I've heard from the industry is that mining isn't going to slow down, but I don't think it might underpin the WA economy, but it isn't the only driver for growth. Infrastructure is continuing. The MetroNet in the Northern Corridor to Yanchep, for example, that's had a big impact on the northwest coastal demand. So I think, there's a lot more to WA than just mining.
Definitely. Scott, do you have a successful investor story for us?
Yeah, so not just one successful investor story. What we are seeing a lot at the moment is first home builders that have come through in the last couple of years that have taken the keys to their new home, had immediate equity upon getting it valued, and then immediately inquired into building an investment property or upgrading their home and then having their first home become an investment. We're seeing those stories month in, month out at the moment, which is great to see.
That's really cool. It can feel quite overwhelming just building one home, but that's amazing that people are able to build a second so quickly afterwards.
Yeah.
What about you, Tyler?
I do have one. It's actually pretty close to my heart, but I'll share. My wife actually built with Home Buyer Centre about 10 years ago, before we met, actually, as her first home. And she did it as a rent vest. So she rented where she wanted to live, but purchased where she was able to afford, and rented that home out. And in one of the growth corridors, and managed to build significant equity, which has then benefited us in future builds as well.
Amazing. We've covered a lot in today's episode. We spoke about whether or not it is worth investing in WA or Victoria, if it's even worth building to invest. And as always, it depends on you and your personal situation. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Tash.
Thank you, Tash.
This information does not consider your personal needs and financial circumstances, and you should consider whether it is appropriate for you. Lender terms and conditions apply and may vary. All financial services provided by Resolve Financial Solutions Pty Ltd, trading as Resolve Finance, ABN 65079545 378. Australian Credit Licence Number 385487. The building practitioner is ABN Group Pty Ltd, trading as Home Buyer Centre